Tonight, we're tackling a profound change in our relationship with media, ownership in the digital age. From possession to access. Wait a second, they're all yelling at me that I'm too low. Okay, I see you, but I have to do the thing because I'm on, I've got, what do you call it? There we go. That'll be better. I'm going to start that again. Tonight, we're tackling a profound change in our relationship with media, ownership in the digital age. From possession to access, in just 15 years, we've shifted from owning physical copies with the rights to lend and resell to licensed access through streaming and subscription platforms. This change is more than just a pricing model. It's a re-engineering of your consumer rights, your psychological attachment to art, and how creators get paid. So we're going to examine why digital buy often means license, how this impacts our cultural memory, and where the lines of ownership blur with artificial intelligence. Welcome to The Rundown. I hate to do this, but Zoom just came out with 6.7, which means that some of the things moved around and I forgot where to change my original audio. So sorry about that. Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Rundown.
Hello.
Welcome. Oh, yeah, we're on. Wait, let me put everyone up here. Let's say hi to everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to The Rundown. So I just want to sort of, I want to acknowledge that there's a new schedule in office hours, and we are the Thursday show. And so number one, I'm grateful. But number two, I really want to make
Thursday show in office hours. Yes,
best Thursday show. I want to make sure that everyone who's watching, that everyone who wants to contribute has the opportunity to contribute, and that you will all share your thoughts in the comments. You'll join the Discord. You'll be a part of creating this show, just like you're a part of creating every other show. We are figuring out a way to make the Discord a little more user-friendly for folks. Right now, the YouTube chat is working really well, so I'm going to focus on that for now. But we are talking about how, did I say Discord? I meant Mukana. About how we can make Mukana for this show a little more user-friendly. Right now, we have our own separate Mukana. It's a little confusing to get to, but throw your comments, your chat, your ideas in the chat. Austin Stratt, my future son-in-law, is in the chat with us. Peter Sargent is here. Good to see you. Tommy, hello. Sky, did you want to say something?
I was on the Monday night show with Grant, and I was told at that point that we are all going to homogenize single Mukana. All people, all things, one Mukana.
That is the plan.
The plan also is to let people know this show is nothing like the morning shows. Nothing.
Right. And so
same people, different costumes.
One of the other things that I
we'll take comments, but we won't take questions.
Well, no, but one of the things that I talked about with them is with the team is that we aren't really a question-based show, but we love the comments, and so using Mukana as a comment generator just as much as a question generator.
Managing expectations. Right. What are you, a rabbi?
Okay, so that's the administrivia. So welcome, everyone. And by the way, it does seem like we will be here next Thursday and the Thursday after that. If no one else is here, I will be here next Thursday and the Thursday after that. And if it's just me, it'll definitely be a question show. But no, Lois will be here and Tamara's going to pop in.
I'm going to try. I'm going to run to get there.
No, don't run. Family is always more important than this show or anything else. So there's no pressure on anyone, but we will be here and we will have, I actually have a couple of really fantastic themes for us to talk about. I was doing some research this afternoon, but enough of this. It's time to get into the news. Have you seen Learn Your Way? This is pretty
Not
cool.
until you gave it to me. It's pretty cool, though.
This is pretty cool. So this is a new experiment by Google. And it's very, very closely matched with Notebook LM. I mean, it almost, in many ways, it's a rebranding of Notebook LM for a particular purpose. But here's how it works. So you take your textbook or a chapter from your textbook, you upload it into Learn Your Way. It then, and you tell it how you like to learn. And it then takes it and changes it and represents it to you in that way. So for example, let's see, I want to learn, I'm going to go philosophy. No, I don't want to do philosophy. Let's do health. So for health, there's an overview of anatomy and physiology. Am I a middle schooler who likes food, or am I an undergrad who likes video games? I'm an undergrad who likes video games. So now what it's going to do is it's going to take that information in this PDF. It's going to give me a few different ways to look at it. Do I want to see it as immersive text? Do I want to see it as slides with narration? This sounds a lot like the Notebook LM podcast. Do I want the audio lesson, which again sounds a little bit
Hello. Welcome to our lesson. Today, we're going to dive into the amazing
sounds
world
a lot like the
of
audio
human
podcast.
Sure
body.
does.
And then it has the mind map, which, and again, these are all things that they have more recently added to Notebook LM. And then you've got your source over here. This is what you uploaded. There are quizzes that are involved. I mean, look at this. This is kind of amazing what it's creating here. This is not the source. It took this out of the source. It has inline quizzes. I don't know. To me, this is very, very exciting. This is yet
the
another
most upsetting
step.
thing is I was looking at it on my screen and it's bright white, and I'm looking at yours and it's kind of pale. And we're 4 hours apart. Your computer has already gone to night vision.
Well, no, I always have my computer on dark. I don't know if that's what this is. I've always seen it in this shade, but I don't know.
Right.
That's interesting.
I love this. I think it's.
Check your monitor, Sky.
There is. Go ahead, Tamara. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say I love this because as an educator, the truth of the matter is we really can't give people what they really need all the time, even though we know the best practices to do that. The question I have is that it's helpful if it truly is the best way for you to learn content that you are then able to engage with and respond with, as opposed to what might happen with it, which is a student says, you know what, I'm feeling a little lazy. I don't want to read. I just want to listen. But that's not, in fact, their best way of getting information. But I love the idea of it, though.
All right, but I'll play devil's advocate here. I mean,
please do.
So what if a student decides they'd rather listen to take in the information than read? I mean, we have audiobooks. We all use audio. I mean, I'm not. Sure
I totally agree with that, and I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is, it really has to be able to be. The question is, will you actually be able to change, to regurgitate the text into, to pass tests, to take this quiz, or to more importantly have an engaging, thought-provoking conversation in your classroom setting. So, that's where, yes, having access, there's a lot of reasons to have digital access, not the least of which is textbooks are heavy, and, we need to have access in lots of different ways so that people can get the material. Not everyone does have access to digital forms of getting information, even though we've been talking about that for a long time. So it gives an advantage to people who have access to software and access to this system. But I love the idea of it, and I do think it's exactly the kind of idea that helps students. I would like to see, if they're going to go all out in this way, is to also have ESL and other support systems in this digital space, because that's where I was able to use digital spaces like a Moodle in a way that was really compelling, where I was able to put content up, but when you logged in, you also had, if you were an ESL student, they had access to their own language and things like that. So I feel like that would be the benefit of of having a digital space is really being able to provide this content in mother tongue and in with ways that have supports that are good practices for students who are struggling in different areas. And I think it's not just ESL, but it's also lots of different areas. That's where digital, to me, has the opportunity to go outside of the textbook and be bigger than what could fit in your backpack.
So let me just
I think
quickly.
that there's
Sorry, one thing before I go on, Lois. I just want to show some of the other features here. So obviously, if you want to make sure you understand this paragraph, there's the little quiz that comes up. If you go to, let me go to this page. So this, you can see how they customize it for you. So this is a personal example.
Right.
This is a high schooler who likes basketball. So an algorithm is a detailed sequence of instructions that work with data. We can think of everyday examples like a coach's playbook, a pregame warm-up routine, or the steps for shooting a free throw. I'd actually like to see more of this in here. There isn't much right now, but the idea that it's going to speak in my language, right, in a language that I know and appreciate, right there, that's a hook that grabs kids. And I think that's a really, really nice piece of this. I'm sorry, Lois, go ahead.
So I think that would be great for people who are not in a class at the time, but are doing stuff on their own, so that they're getting the information from this book in whatever manner they want. The drawback I see is if you've got a class and you're going to be talking about what you read, if you didn't read it, what are you going to talk about? I can see transforming this into a comic book and sharing the learning that way. But maybe if the teacher could do that and then give it to all the students in the class the same way. So whatever you're doing for a classroom situation.
Right, but that defeats the purpose, Lois. That's the
Right.
whole point, right, is to be able to personalize to each student. Now, if it's done right, because your point is an important one, is that you need to be able to talk about the subject matter. You need to be able to engage as a class, as a learning community around the subject matter. If this is doing it right, and I haven't dived in deeply enough to know if it is, but if it's doing it right, the core ideas, the fundamental skills and big ideas, those are going to come through in whatever format it presents it to you.
And the
So
truth
if
is,
you-
teachers are doing this now. It's called SEDI or SIOP, sheltered education. It is an enormous amount of work. And I know a lot of teachers who are trained in SIOP and trained in SEDI, and they don't do it, not because it's not best practices, because when you use it regularly, you don't want to go back because everybody gets what they need, how they need it. So that's not necessarily the issue of, having different levels get content in different ways, because from an educational standpoint, reading is interacting with text, and we consider audiobooks reading from an educational standpoint. So if someone got something from an audiobook, we would consider that content equally valuable to reading it. Because we want to meet students where they're at. Now, there's lots of controversy about all kinds of problems in education right now. Those things are very real. I do think that this could be a help for teachers if it continues to put in some of those other best practices into it. Like, we already have sources like News ELA that takes a regular article and then splits it into multiple grade levels. So you can hand your students something that is same content, but at their grade level, at their reading level, so they can interact with it. So we're already doing this. This is just giving us a tool that would let us do it more. But I think that this is a great start, and I'd like to see more.
So if you've got a textbook and
Mhm.
it's a good textbook, then summarizing it shouldn't, I mean, if the textbook doesn't have a whole lot of fluff in it, it's just got the ideas, then shrinking it down so that you throw away some of the ideas saying they're fluff, I can see that would be not as good as if if it's a good textbook.
No,
I don't think it's not about the
fluff.
textbook. Here's the reality. When we went to school, a majority of the kids in the 6th grade were at 6th grade level or somewhere near it. When you teach now, you have 30 kids in your classroom and you have 30 kids coming to you at all different levels, which means I can hand someone a 6th grade textbook, but they don't read at 6th grade level. They literally can't access that amazing, amazing textbook. And that's what we're dealing with right now, is that there is no classroom that you go into in America where every single student is on grade level, or even a majority of the students are on grade level. They are widely different. So what we're talking about is creating accessibility to meet students where they are, to get them to their next level. If I'm the best teacher in the world, I can get someone a year and a half instead of a year during the course of a year. So I'm not going to bring someone 4 years below up to grade level.
I'm going to go to Sky and Tony, but I just want to quickly jump in and say that I don't even think it's about that, respectfully. I think it's about personalization. I think it's about allowing children to learn in the best way for them. I don't think it's about what level they're at. The same textbook, it's not about getting rid of information. It's about reframing the information, number one, into a language that speaks to that child. And then number two, it's about letting the child choose how they learn best. And that, to me, by the way, is probably the most important part of this. Because to me, I don't really care if they get what's in the textbook. What I care about is, do they know how they learn best? Because if you know how you learn best, then you can learn anything. Sky and then Tony. Go ahead, Sky.
My lovely wife works in a public school system. I have learned a new word, dysregulated. And it is the social issue of something's not right at home. The nutrition is not happening. The testing has not happened. Somehow that individual, whether they're 3rd grade, 5th grade, she only goes, anyway, K to 8. So these are the stories that I hear, and that's the word that I've been hearing. And so I guess as I'm hearing this argument over Fords and Chevys, it's like, who cares? What is it that the textbook is supposed to do? And Dave, you said your agenda was to have the student be able to find out how they learn best. I'm going to take it even further and ask, so Tamara, you're saying different brains develop at different levels, at different genders, so these are things that I didn't go to school to learn and understand this. I'm hearing this from my master's, my wife that is a master's in education. So she's teaching me how kids are learning, but also the bureaucracies. And so Lois, to your point, the challenge is, yes, are these tools are the conversation, or is the information, the knowledge? And is it knowledge? And this is where Troutman's going to help me. Is it knowledge or wisdom? Because that's where Tony comes in. What is the difference between knowledge and wisdom? And you need to go back to that thing, hit philosophy again. We'll have a conversation.
Yeah. Speaking of Tony.
Yeah, I just think that this is a great tool and that it can be used primarily with students in every area of learning. But also, I think specifically that those who are on the spectrum and need additional supports could glean a lot from this particular type of learning. Not necessarily this particular one, but I don't see anything wrong with this one. I intend to share this link with friends and family that I know that are in education. I really want to push back just a little bit on what Sky was saying in terms of, you have an issue of, even in the same school system, whether it be county or city or whatever, you have learners that are, as he said, in different economical backgrounds, and also are impacted by the quality of support that the school system or the local school systems get from those who are PTA participants and supporters. And they are able to, in some systems, they are the PTA in the same school system where there are people who have advantages are able to pour into that particular local school as opposed to across town where there is not that type of PTA support. So anything that helps learners develop in a way that is unique or impactful for them, I think is a positive thing.
So we're not going to solve the woes of education tonight.
I'm out of here then.
I know. I will say that in the launch of this, one of the questions that came up was, well, wait a second, you're uploading copies of textbooks. Those are usually copyrighted.
I was wondering about that.
And so the representative from Google said that they're starting, of course, with what's it called?
Public
domain.
Public domain textbooks and things like that. But I think it actually raises a really interesting question about
from
how
1807.
Right. Well, how might professors choose to use this? Professors who perhaps have even written their own textbooks, how might they choose to use this? And this will then go into our conversation later on about owning versus renting and things like that. But in any case, there is a wait list. I've been on the wait list now for about a week. I haven't heard a peep from Google. So sign up, I guess. Let me know if you get on. I haven't gotten on yet. But I'm
curious. I'm curious if the textbook companies, because it's a requirement for schools to have a digital access to a textbook. I'm wondering how, and the textbook companies have been very on top of creating these kinds of things, and they've been doing it for a long time. So I'm curious to go to those textbook companies and see what they're doing with their textbooks as well.
Also a monopoly too. So
yes,
right, but here's the thing: they have to offer these things, and so they do have a digital version, and I'm curious to see how they're also stepping up to meet these needs.
Well, once this is out of experimentation, we'll have to see. All right, next, the person of the year isn't a person. Time's person of the year for 2025 is a whole bunch of people. All the guys that were sitting on the. Have you seen the cover? Or is it? Do they have it in here? Yeah, here they are. All the guys who are sitting and one gal who's kind of half on here. They only gave her half a body. Sitting on this
also
iconic image. They're saying that all of the architects of AI, they say, which by the way, there are only a few people on here who are actually the architects of AI. They are the person of the year. So what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What's your sense on this?
Magazine covers are there to sell magazines.
Yeah, but
AI is not a person.
The original clickbait.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's
AI
clickbait,
is not a person.
Well, but wait,
and
let me
it's
just
like
address
putting us. They had the one with the mirror, right? This is like when the internet was big, and it was all internet too. They put a mirror on the cover. It was supposed to be.
I remember
us.
that,
We're
right?
The cover.
But let me just address the cover thing because I actually think it's significant in an age where we usually don't look at covers. We don't usually, because we're not holding physical magazines anymore.
Well, you stopped going to the grocery store. I see your problem.
That's my problem. Instacart. Being on the cover, this is a big deal, and and everyone's talking about it. Not everyone. We are talking about it.
Oh, yes, you're talking about it. That's what I'm
talking about it. Okay.
I was not talking about it to anybody.
I think this is a big deal.
No.
I think it says
this will be forgotten. This will be forgotten.
Of course it'll be forgotten. Everything's going to be forgotten. But my point is that okay, let me phrase the question a little differently. Do you agree that, take another step back. There's a lot of talk right now about the bubble, the AI bubble, and wondering, is this AI bubble going to burst like so many other bubbles before it? This choice by Time Magazine, to me, says they're pretty bullish on AI. Certainly, all the people sitting on this beam are really bullish because they're dumping billions upon billions of dollars into it.
Of somebody else's money.
Okay,
It's not their money.
that we are willingly giving them.
Somebody is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think both things are
Multiple
true.
that I use every day just had their second. They just raised $300 billion. Wait, billion or million? It was million. 300 million. I sounded like Dr. Evil for a second there. They raised $300 million in their Series B funding. So there's a lot of money in this stuff. And you don't have to like the cover, but
It doesn't make it important, though. If there's a lot of money in something, it doesn't make it important.
I disagree 100%. It absolutely does. It
It's
absolutely
not
does.
about the money.
David, this is supposed to be the person of the year, the best, the brightest,
No.
the
No.
thing that demonstrates the year 2025.
No, it's not the best though, Lois, and that's actually important.
Right.
Hitler was the person of the year.
So are these people with AI?
This is the most talked about subject.
Yeah, it's like the
Is
game
that-
changer subject.
Right.
Okay.
And for that, that's a really important. I'm actually
so
really
glad you
said
qualified that.
Yeah.
So
This
glad
is
you
not
qualified
saying
that.
these are the best people. It's saying these are the movers and shakers of this past year.
Influence.
Well,
So
I think they got the wrong one.
Really?
I think Trump is the mover and shaker this past year. 2025 is the year of Trump.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but they're not going to put him on the cover, unfortunately.
No,
Well, they already did twice.
Yeah.
They would again.
but not as the person of the year. Which
No, I think they would. They did twice as the person of the year. They absolutely did.
No, they didn't. No, they've had him on the cover, but they have not used person of the year. Sorry.
So I do think that this is a significant and we've been taught, it's been a huge part of our conversation for the last year. I definitely think it's interesting. I showed you off camera that I had a little bit of a discovery in one of my storages, which
Bring it home.
I have, let's find a camera, Newsweek from 1995, where it was the year of the internet. And I'm kind of interested in some of the comparisons. One, if you read the articles about it, it's exactly the same. It's exciting, it's frustrating, and it's going to end the world. Those are basically the conversations that we keep hearing about AI, and they're the conversations we heard 30 years ago. I know, ouch. But one of the things that's really interesting is the internet became the talked about thing in 1995 when we are talking about the World Wide Web, as we knew it, was really only a year old. It was not that old. And so that is a significant difference than AI, because ChatGPT, for example, is 3 years old. So if we're talking about a potential bubble bursting, we're not near the potential bubble bursting if we are to use previous technological timelines, such as the internet. But I do think it's interesting because it made me wonder, as I was holding this magazine that I found from 30 years ago, that I love the tactileness of it. And I feel like every year those were magazines that I ran for. And I don't know that I feel the same way, that they have the same heft that they did when they were actually a magazine versus being one of the many, many digital things that passes by in and out of my inbox. So I do agree that I think it's significant. I'm curious if it holds the same significance as the physical magazines held when physical magazines were the things that that were inexpensive, because now they're $15, so no one's bringing that puppy home.
And the Damocles sword that was hanging over our neck at that point in history was Y2K, because somebody hadn't thought for that far enough ahead. So we had other things, getting to Troutman's point, grabbing our attention in that moment, and the exponential speed that this rocket ship, that AI is, I disagree. We are on a different trajectory because now each of us, the billions of iPhone smart devices, so-called smart devices, that are in the hands of small children, physically and metaphorically, that's a different playing field. We are completely in a different space.
My exponential, the exponentialness of how it is, changing and growing is incredibly fast. The internet as we knew it in 1995 was changing. I think the statistic was 2,000% every quarter. So that was also a significant time of change. I do think the difference, some of the differences, one of the things that was really interesting is that at this point, only 1 out of 10 people were actually utilizing websites. And so I think that for me, we are in a similar time, but there are drastic differences about this, right? Because the implications about AI are very different than the implications about the World Wide Web and the internet itself.
Thank you.
Again, the internet at this point was not the World Wide Web exclusively, because in 1995 we were still dealing with, I have, back here I showed you the version 2 of the Internet Yellow Pages, which is, a giant tome of things that has very few websites in it, that is still much more internet based. The internet at that point had been decades old, not not brand new, but the World Wide Web, which was causing this surge of people understanding that it was an everyday thing, was happening then. I think it's really significant. I think my question to everyone is it as meaningful of a discussion or is this something that shows up and then goes away as we're, barreling down this trajectory?
I think it's definitely going to show up and go away. I'm going to jump to you, Tony. Just want to correct the record. Trump actually was named Person of the Year in 2016 and in 2024 for Time Magazine. So it was twice before. Tony, go for it.
So I was just thinking about this from the standpoint of sort of leaning into what Tamara was saying. And I need your support or correction in the statement I'm about to make. So in my studies, I believe that the Black Plague, what happened after the Black Plague, was the Renaissance. If that's correct, if you guys can say that that's correct, I would argue that what happened with COVID is going to be a similar type of jump forward. I think that what happened with the internet in 95 up until just before COVID was that it was on a trajectory, but that trajectory was sort of slow speed.
Right.
Coasting. And that what COVID did, it turned technology into sort of a rocket. And I think that because that happened, that we cannot see what the bubble is going to be because we are constantly evolving. Things that would have happened over a 10 years period of time, I think can happen in 6 months based on where we are technology wise. And so that was just a thought that I had as we were talking about this.
Go ahead, Sky. Maybe the last
gonna
word, just because I want to get us started.
I'm going to throw it to Troutman because the origin of the internet, I was understood it was DARPA getting a couple of universities together.
Yeah.
So 1963.
I was going to let Troutman.
No, it's an academic enterprise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So historically, it was funded by the U.S. military to get research that they needed done, and it was, from my understanding, that even the networking was physical wires that were dragged across the campus, and then from campus to campus, and then
Sky, so I was there when the internet started becoming, and first you had the universities being connected so that they could share files. And you had to know exactly where the file was, what folder on what drive on what computer, and you gave an instruction, file transfer protocol instruction, told it exactly where to go, and then you could get the file. And then some smart person said, well, look, I don't know exactly where that file is, but here, I will make links to the various things that you can get on our system. And so you could go to a place and, oh, lo and behold, number 1, number 2, number 3, and there were links. It was a miracle.
Well,
And-
that's
and
the
that-
HTTP.
And
the
then,
Berners-Lee.
Actually,
No,
that was
that's
Gopher.
FTP.
it hadn't happened yet. That was
was
FTP.
Gopher.
Yep.
Yeah, it was Gopher. And then someone created, they said, okay, so if we can have links, why can't we put words around the links so we can have a paragraph describing what it is and then the link to the thing? And then somebody added pictures, and boy, that changed everything. But at the point that that happened, it was affecting the people who were in the university, in the government, in the military. It was not affecting the whole wide world yet.
There you
And
go.
when I started, we had a company, we started a company called mother.com, and we were the access point for various businesses and things. And so once the World Wide Web came out, then you had to start teaching people how to do it and all that stuff. So I ended up doing that stuff. And the difference between when we started, 95, 96 was about the earliest that anybody was doing anything.
That's
and
300,
10
300 baud modems.
Yes. And then 10 years later, well, I would go to companies in town and I'd say, hey, you want a web page so people can see your information? And they'd go, what? Why do I need that? There's a yellow pages. People can call me. So it took a while for the usefulness of it to become apparent. And then people started, businesses mostly started saying, oh yeah, I should have a web page. And then now, if someone does not have a web page, you think they're very strange. So the difference, I think, here between now and then was that built up as people saw the usefulness of it. Now, the AI tools are embedded in lots of other things that you don't know. So you don't know that you're using an AI tool. You don't know that this other thing that you rely on has now switched to using AI. You don't know that. And so our knowledge of what's occurring is very few people.
So I just want
But
to
I think
wrap
that
this.
speaks to Tony's point, though, right? That COVID changed, because I think the technology is rapidly
Yeah.
moving at the same pace, even though the level of technology is clearly higher now. But I think that more people know about it and more people are interacting with it because of COVID.
So I would like to end this segment by apologizing that I even mentioned the person's time of the year, because talk about a rabbit hole. Hey, have you ever seen these before? You know what these are?
Playing cards?
No,
I found a bunch of them in my
these are
storage.
cassette tapes.
Oh,
and the
yeah.
reason I'm sharing them with you is because in my other life, I'm a Jewish musician. And so these are three, I have 6 albums out. These are 3 of my 6 albums. And I have these here mostly just because I like looking at them. I have nothing to play them on. But I'm using them as a prop because last night, despite what happened in Australia, I performed at the huge outdoor Hanukkah celebration in Boca Raton, Florida. And I was giving a concert. And up until 5-6 years ago, whenever I did a concert, I would set up a table and I'd have all my, cassettes or my CDs out there. Last night, no table. I sold nothing because no one has anything except for Sky. No one has anything to play a cassette or a CD on because no one, it seems, owns these things anymore. So our question for tonight is...
My mother bought us this for our wedding gift because it looks so much smaller on the catalog. It's as big as, it's 3 times my head.
So let me start with this. Let me start with the question of what is this shift from physical copies to licensing digital content? What is it about? Is it mostly about price? Is it a redefinition of our legal rights over things, over media? Is it more about our psychology in relationship to media? What's your take on this, Dave? Can I start with you, and then I'll head over to Tony and Scott.
Sure, I've been dutifully silent all this time through the AI stuff because you don't want to hear
That's
my
all right.
opinion.
I knew you were saving it up.
Yeah, I guess my question is, do we really own anything? Did we really own that book?
Right.
We don't own the story. The author wrote that. We get a copy of the book. We haven't been able to own things, I think, for quite a long time.
Right, but I own
albums of
this
music.
is
I had a whole
mine.
wall of music.
I own this.
Oh,
I own
that's
it.
yours.
Right.
But you made it.
No.
You made it.
Forget that this is mine. Forget this is mine. I am holding
Okay.
this physical copy. I can destroy it if I want. I can eat it if I
Yeah.
want. I can do it. I own it. It is
Right,
mine.
but I can't reproduce it without your permission.
Right. Exactly.
Now, the internet is ultimately reproducible. You put something on the internet, everybody's got a copy. You don't have much control over that. So they've had to come up with ways to give us a sense of ownership without messing up the whole thing about you have to have a receipt for that web page that you're reading. So I think owning a copy is not the actual thing. It's whether or not we have access. And the access to information and music and all the rest of that has just changed. But it's also a societal change. I have my son's early girlfriends would have an iPod and they would be listening. And when I asked them, what do you listen to? Oh, I'm listening to this and listening to that. And I'm going, oh, play one for me. She'd play the first minute and then change it. The next first minute and then change it. And I understand it's even shorter now. People get 10 bars in and then they change it. They heard the whole song in their head and now they only listen to the first half or the first piece. Up here, we have farmers who own a tractor, but they don't own the software. And it makes a problem when they have a problem where a tractor is not giving them the information they're supposed to have. And they think they should be able to just go into the code and type it up because they have computers at home too. They're working their whole business on a computer, but they're not allowed to touch that. They can get a wrench into the engine, but they're not allowed to touch the software. And there's, original artworks I have in my house, about 4 or 5 of them. And I can't reproduce those. I can't sort of put them out and give them away to people and sell them because I have the original and I'm only going to have it. So I guess, as soon as this starts creeping into the ownership of cars, and I heard the Volkswagen actually had a subscription for heated seats, that you could have an annual subscription to have heated, because they didn't think people would use it all the time. But up here in Canada, that's kind of a requirement. And so we can have these copies of things, but we can't actually own them anymore. There is a thing, though, that just came up in MacBreak Tuesday of last week. An Apple developer in Australia named Paris Addison recently put a card in from a retail shop. And the Apple card that he got for that discount or whatever broke his ID, and they locked him out of his stuff.
I saw that.
Oh, my goodness.
And he couldn't get at his pictures, his stuff. He's a developer for Apple. He couldn't get into the code. Everything was up there, and it's a caution I give my son. He's bought a lot of music on the net, and I say, look, as soon as that company folds, you don't have that music anymore. Yep. Or if I ever sign out of Apple and become a Linux user and I don't want to touch Apple anymore, all that stuff I got from Apple, including the software, it's going to disappear.
There have been
that's the problem with ownership. We can't.
There have been
really
a few things, not many, maybe 2 things, videos that were really impactful that I don't know if they'll be taken off of YouTube one day, and I've downloaded them. And I don't use them for commercial purposes, but I want to make sure that
you have a copy.
Have it. Right, that I have it. Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm right there with Dave in terms of this whole thing of I have so much music that's on Apple. It's crazy. And at the same time, I have probably 40, 50, or 60 DVDs and CDs that are on the stand in my living room, and I have nothing that I can play them on. Nothing. There is nothing that I have in my house that I can play them on. And so, as Dave said, if Apple decides that for whatever reason my Apple Music is all gone. The other thing that I was thinking about as we were talking about this, is behind me I have a couple of my volumes of a theological dictionary of the New Testament And if I were to try to find those books, those volumes, they are digitized. You cannot buy the hard copies.
Right.
And so what happens to these books? Well, the other thing too is that they've updated some of the theological theories and conversations also. So I don't have the benefit of being able to access that unless I get a digital copy.
Sky, go ahead.
Yeah, I hear they're updating the Old Testament. I think there's 11 commandments now. Tony, you better buy the new better buy the new thing. So I'm just curious about the intellectual property. When that came into the conversation, I see Troutman shaking his head, and I went into Perplexly and I looked it up, and it said, even Singer sewing machines had a subscription concept at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been around a long time, and it went back. Again, Perplexly went back to the ancient Greeks back in 500 BC. They said they did a 1-year exclusive for culinary and luxury inventions, but that was very localized and didn't last very long as an idea. But once lawyers got in the middle, that's when they became the middle people. And we're just now talking about all these different delivery devices that are the middle people from the artist to the audience. Now, how do we want to consume our media? Well, I love going to a good concert, to a live production. I enjoy movies as well. It's a different experience, but now that Netflix owns the world, I guess my life is going to be subscription anytime I want to watch anything from the last 30 years of or 150 years of film production for what happened in Warner Brothers library. So, life is a subscription now. It always has been. The fallacy is that we thought we owned stuff.
So
I better disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that either.
Let me just say let me jump in real quick, and then Lois, you'll go. I just want to say that for me, it's not so much about owning versus subscription. It's about, I think it's about what we own. So Sky, I'm thinking about movies, for example. A new movie will pop up for rent in Apple TV or in somewhere. Excuse me, not for rent. New movies that come out, they initially hit and you have to buy them. It's $24.99, $19.99. I don't buy them. I wait until they're $5.49 and I rent them. And yeah, I have to be a little more patient, but I'm not even sure what buying a piece of digital media really means. I'm not, because
right.
I mean, they could.
And that's why sports has become the revenue source for the major markets, because you don't know what's going to happen theoretically, and consequently, that's where the money is, because then you buy with advertising, so you pay for it with your time and your subscription.
And your subscription, yeah. Lois, go ahead.
So I think I'm an artist. I make things. I paint a painting, I do a drawing, whatever. And so when I make something, I own it. If I sell it to somebody or give it away, then they own it. When I'm doing things that are digital, it's there was a question in our thought piece that we get to read before we get on the show about if someone is making something in the modern world using tools and pieces of art information, and they create something, did they actually really make that, or are they just a collector of some sort? And my answer is, we have always had collages in the world, and a collage is a put together thing with using bits and pieces of whatever. Frequently it's magazine items clipped out and put on a board or whatever. That's a collage. It is a piece of art. It was made by the artist. And the fact that they didn't create the magazine that they cut the item out of doesn't mean a darn thing. And it's the same thing with when you make something digitally. So, may I share a screen, Mr. David?
You can. Give me a second to get that set up. And while I'm doing it, I just want to say that I had never thought about sharing digital things like not a scrapbook, what's a collage. That's a fascinating way of thinking about it. And you made me think about Canva, which you can essentially what you do in Canva is create a collage. You're right. It's
Right.
pre-created objects that you put together. And in fact, you can't export. If you take one
Right.
of their elements, you put it on a page, you cannot export it. You have to change it or add to it in some way. That's a fascinating way of thinking about some of these tools. All right, go ahead and share your screen, and we'll see if we can get this to work here. Give me just a moment, and let's see if that worked. Look at
Here we
that.
go. So this is a digital photograph. There was never a negative or a print or anything of it. It was a digital photograph. I put it on my computer. I added words. I made it a haiga. That's a haiku with an image with it. And there it is. Now that's pretty simple. Then I can also take a photograph. Again, this is one I happen to take. And then I can mess with it on the computer. And so I can get all this strange stuff. Now, that's nothing that you would see except unless you saw my stuff, because nobody else is going to do that. And then you have things where there is no photograph. There is no starting point that was in the physical world. This is a digitally created piece that is purely made by making layers of different colors and manipulating it how it goes. So all of those things are now digital. Ooh. And they all are creations of mine. So I own them. Now, if I want to sell one of those things, I can either print it out and sell somebody a physical thing, or I can send them an image, a file that they can look at, and we'll make a deal and they'll promise not to publish it or anything like that. But it's still real. It's still real.
Really don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but we are being broadcast over YouTube.
I have faith that if
Consequent-
people want to buy my stuff, they will contact me and that they won't rip it off.
But this is the conversation, isn't it? Who owns the idea? I believe you own the idea. I believe you own the original image that was captured on a camera that you call digital through an optics, and then it was captured, since celluloid is no longer the way we do things with silver nitrate, et cetera. So there's light and there's some kind of captured device on some kind of medium, a memory stick or something, or whatever will change this week. But I think what we're continuing to talk about is the intellectual property. I love Troutman. Please rescue me here.
No, I was going to go back to the idea of the Renaissance. The COVID has presented us with an opportunity. Nobody really knows when the switch turned in the Renaissance. I mean, we had the Black Plague, but that was like the last Black Plague, when everyone realized we have to fix things, and science got to be forward, and art made its impression, and math was getting more complicated than that. But we're having the same thing now. And if AI is one of those new things that's come out of an intense effort over 30 years to create an artificial form of intelligence, and then it eventually is adopted as just another part of our life, that could, in fact, bring back what I think the Renaissance brought, which was humanism, that we weren't human before that. We were slaves and peasants, and we didn't have a chance. and those who were in power still had power. But when the Renaissance came along, there was a shift in economy, there was a shift in cultural norms, and even in religion. And then people got a chance to have their own opinion about stuff. And away we went with whole new ideas popping up all over the world in all directions. So I get a sense that there's hope here and that it's not all bad, that AI is not going to flatten the world and we're all just going to be standing around with our stuff plugged in. We're going to have to find a way to evolve to accept our own tools. And these tools right now don't actually do much. But I think, the sense that it has a chance, and if we want it to, we can let it help us to find a new way of being human, then I'm all for it. The bubble, however, is real, and it is going to pop because of the cyclical musical chairs of money going between the people. So NVIDIA invests in chat AI, and then they buy NVIDIA stuff. And
Right.
nobody really, 300 billion doesn't change hands. It just is favors to each other. And this is when cash flow is important. And if you don't get cash flow, you don't have a business. So they
Right.
can get money coming in from subscribers, but it's never going to outrace their investment in hardware and data centers.
Yeah, go ahead, Sky.
One fun fact: the plague was from 1347 to 1351, killed roughly a third of Europe's population, creating a severe labor shortage, weakening the old feudal manor system. So they had to mechanize because they didn't have the bodies to, do the stuff anymore. So it was a yes and, but I didn't realize the plague only lasted 4 years. 4 years that
The
rings
Black
a COVID
Plague,
bell.
yes. Yeah.
I'm
There
not
were
sure-
other plagues before that.
I'm not sure that was a good tip. That was a little depressing.
I'm just saying, learn from history or deserve to relive it. I don't know.
Okay. Go ahead, Tamara.
I think a lot of this we're talking about is the difference between tangible items and intellectual property.
Yes.
And that's where people have been confused forever and ever and ever. I physically own this book. I've owned it for 30 years. Do I own any of the content or the rights to reproduce it? I do not. So that is one of the things that every single time, that was the when we went to the World Wide Web and we started putting people's stuff up when Google started digitizing all of the books in the world, and then they were like, oh gosh, we really can't do that because you don't own that intellectual property. And we're having that conversation again with AI. That is a confusing fact of life for many, many people. I know in the education field, every time I talk to teachers, when I was a teacher, people would put a video in on a rainy day, and it's like, you actually can't do that. That is not fair use. And it's very confusing for people that they're like, but I own the tape. I bought the tape so I can show it to my class. And I said, no, you actually cannot do that. You can use it as part of a lesson plan that is written down that is like you're using it as a teaching tool. That is fair use. So I think that intellectual property versus tangible property is a confusing thing. It continues to be confusing. It shouldn't be that confusing. If you didn't write it, you don't own it. But I think that's part of it.
Can I push back, Tamara? And then
Yeah,
Tony,
please
I'm going to
do.
throw it to you. I think that legally, I think ethically, you're absolutely correct. I think practically, that's caca-doodie poop. I mean, I'm sorry. If I own something, it's mine. I own it. Is it ethical or legal for me to make a photocopy? Maybe not, but it's mine. And if I have access to a photocopier, I'm going to make a photocopy of it. Now,
It's
where
your
you
copy.
really get, where
It's
it
not the
really
original.
I don't care. I don't need to buy the original.
Well, it matters.
Whatever
it legally
it is,
matters.
whatever
it's a copy.
is mine. Okay, whether it's the original or copy, it's mine. I have it. I paid for it. It's in my possession. Possession is 9/10 of the law. I don't know that that's true. I've just heard it said.
No,
okay,
that's not true.
I'm sure it's not. My point is just that, and again, I'm not making a legal or an ethical argument. I'm making a practical argument. And I think if you said to me, if the question was instead, could you take your copy, Dave, of this thing and make photocopies of it and then sell them? That to me is a much different conversation than
Right.
I'm making a photocopy to share with a friend, or I'm showing a video to my class.
And
I
and
just don't think that
here's the thing. Video to your class is a showing of it. There's a number cutoff. So of where you can bring people in
but
to do it.
But Tamara, that's yes, legally there is, but
you-
practically,
But listen, do I think as much as I have this hard copy, I'm sure I have other things that are photocopied, right? So I agree with what you're saying. You own it. You're going to do whatever you're going to do with it. No one's going to come after you.
Right.
If you do show a Disney video in your classroom and Disney finds out about it, they will send you a cease and desist letter, and they will have every right to do that. So legally speaking, I know this because my friend was a third grade teacher who accidentally had a kid in her third grade class whose uncle worked for Disney, and she got a cease and desist letter. But again, so we're talking about the practicalities of legal versus I own it. I own something and I'm going to photocopy the manual so that I don't lose it, or I'm going to digitize it. Is that legal? Probably not, but I own it.
Right.
You're not coming into my stuff. Is it actually going to pose a real problem for that company? Are they going to prove that they lost money from me by doing that? Probably. This is like, that's going to be one of those things that it's a needle in the haystack thing. It is still illegal. Even though I own it, I don't have the right to do that. Do I do that? Sure. If I need to have another copy of something, I just print it out, right? So I agree with you. I think there are two different issues. But where it becomes the bigger issue are things where we're having these conversations in AI, and we've had them in every technology prior, including silent film to talkies, where is it okay for us to take libraries of other people's things and train AI on it? Those are the bigger conversations. At the end of the day, that's a done deal. And when they do finally get the legal stuff settled, people are going to get 62 cents, if that. It'll probably get 2 cents, right?
Let me go around the horn. Hold on, Lois. Let me go around the horn. I promised Tony I was going to come to him. Before we do that, I just want to throw this comment up from Ronson. Forgive me, I'm not sure the name, but this is such a great point.
So good.
That's the thing about computers. Copy and paste is the primary fundamental power computers possess. They can copy and paste anything. I love that. I just think that's so powerful. Tony, and then Lois, go.
One of the things that I wrestled with as this conversation was going on, I don't know how different what's going on right now is different from as a young person. Even before I was a teenager, my parents sacrificed and got the World Book Encyclopedia. And in the World Book Encyclopedia, there were like parts of the body and these beautiful colored diagrams and pictures and stuff. And sometimes I would cut out some of those pictures for a school project.
Tony, shh. This is live. What are you doing?
And so
It's confession time here.
The World Book Police are coming.
And so really, when you think about it, how different is that from the things
Very.
that are happening now?
Very.
You can cite it, and that would make it
Right.
okay.
Absolutely.
You
right.
You can take your copy and you can cut it up and you can line the bird cage with it. That's fine. You own that piece of paper, that copy. What you do not own, David, is the right to make a copy of the material. And if you look at the book and you open it up the front and it says, here's a copyright, and it says who you can contact if you want to use that
Permission,
and publish it
Right.
and stuff. So Tony, he didn't do anything wrong because he had one picture and he cut it out and he passed it around, but it was still one picture. Now, if you had had a copy machine and you had made 20 of those pictures, then you would have been publishing it and it would have been illegal. Now, I know, David, you don't care, but that I think is one of the problems that we have is that modern times, people don't care about copyright. They just don't. They say, oh, I've got it. I'll do anything I want with it.
Well, and from an educational standpoint, if you cite any work, you can use anything that you want. You just need to cite it and give credit for it. And so that's a very different thing. There's built-in things within education to allow you to utilize someone else's argument or someone else's work. You just can't utilize it as your own.
Okay, I'm feeling a little attacked here.
I'm sorry.
It's not that I don't care. I'm saying people don't care that there is
You
a
said you were
gonna
practical
do it.
Right.
there's a
Let's follow up on
practical
that. Yes.
side to this.
Let's.
And and I just think that instead of making the argument that you shouldn't copy, I think we should make the argument that Tamara's saying, which is you own it.
Copy with credit.
That's how people think about it. If you want to make a copy, don't make money off of it and cite. And give,
Right.
and give credit.
This is
That's
where
all.
I think
Sky, go ahead.
it's not even just not caring. I think a lot of people don't know. I really
that's
think a
what I
lot of
meant.
people
That's what I
don't know.
meant.
They don't understand copyright law.
Yeah, Sky, go
I
ahead.
know why.
Right.
Oh, okay. I'm going to jump in. Okay. So, but I do love Tamara's response because she knows stuff and I need to know what she knows. And she's telling me, so now I know stuff. Now, is that a copy or is that her information that I stole? I don't know. But my point would be,
Wait, that's actually kind of interesting.
Well, this is the social construct, isn't it?
Right.
Because the difference as we're wrapping out here, what did I say? This is a different communications of conversations. The panel show that was the office hours experience that Alex Lindsay disciplined us, I value highly. This is a different social experiment. Are any of them better than the others?
Nope.
We got good lighting. We got good audio. Thank you, Alex Lindsay. We got connection. Thank you, Alex Lindsay. But all of the other people that learned from the rabbi. So, sorry, the digital rabbi, not the one sitting there. But where I was going with all of this is the social construct that we talk about legal issues, and we talk about ownership, we talk about property, and we talk about control. But at one time, it was the law that humans could own other humans. And that was a societal experience of property that they could do with what they wished. And now we turn it over to Tony.
Well, wait.
No,
Before
wait,
we turn it over
that's
to
not
Tony,
not fair.
First of all, I muted in Zoom, but I didn't mute on YouTube. I'm sorry. I just opened a soda and it made a big pop. I apologize for that. That's fascinating, Sky. Kind of connecting this or grounding this conversation.
I would hope so.
in-
Grounding is adults talking with other adults in a society.
But grounding this conversation of ownership in some of
Yeah.
the uglier times when human beings were owned. I mean, it's funny you pointed to Tony because I immediately thought about the Israelites enslaved.
We haven't seen ugly
enslaved
yet.
in Egypt. Right. Let me take us out of that ugliness for a moment. Just ask a very simple question.
All right.
Who owns this show?
You do, unfortunately.
YouTube. No, technically,
No.
I believe it's YouTube.
Well, it depends on what you mean by the show. If you mean the recording of the show, maybe it's YouTube.
Exactly.
But if you mean the show and the creation of the show, you own the means by which we can talk to each other. So I think you own
No,
The
I
show.
don't.
Sandbox.
But then it's
That's
also
Zoom.
No,
I don't
no,
own that.
no, it isn't. In this particular situation, we have all given you permission to
Yep.
have what we say
right.
used for your purposes. I don't have any control over what you do with this, but my
Right.
trust is that you're going to do something nice with it. And we all agree that that's why we're here. We like talking to each other, but at the same time, we've given you permission by attending.
And this
I
example,
wanted to go to the values of things that came up in my thinking while Sky was talking. We've undervalued ownership of things or original things. And it used to be that you hired a painter to do
There it
your
is.
portrait because it was going to be of you and you bought it from the guy and he made money doing this for a living. And we value everything much less now because it's so ubiquitous or so many copies available. Or tomorrow morning, I can get my own version and download it and have my own copy of something. And because of those things, we've got a crisis of value where humans now are just things on TV. They're not real. And everything is being questioned as how real is what I'm looking at? What's real? How real is what this guy's opinion on this web page is? How real is the answer I'm getting from an AI? And we have a problem there in that we're losing the human part. And that's why I wanted to go back to the Renaissance, because we have a chance now to force the human side into the equation and keep it there for future ownership, I guess.
So I Am Fatness says, Office Hours Global Nonprofit owns this show. You do not give up your ownership when you stream to YouTube.
Right. That I was going to actually say that. But if you were to use a broadcast television model, then NBC does not own any of the shows unless they are part of the studio that made them. What happens instead is kind of like a rental model where you get a license fee. They have up to 3 times a year, a certain amount of time to play it. They can come back to you, but the ownership actually resides with the studio and then ultimately with the copyright owner, the writers and the people who are making it. So there's a lot of complexity in terms of when you
Thank
have
you.
multiple corporations who are running this. But Office Hours Global, if they're airing it on their site, then that would be a determination between you and them as to who owns the ultimate copy of it.
Now, just to complicate
So when
things,
the lawyers the lawyers show up, you're safe, Paskin. You're safe.
right. Well,
you
just to
passed it on.
complicate things, and we don't have to get into this, but technically we're streaming this in 2 places. We're streaming this to the Office Hours
Right.
YouTube page, and we're streaming it to a private YouTube page that I set up for the Rundown. So I don't know.
I mean, I
maybe
think
Alex is going to come sue me. I'm not sure.
Right, but ultimately there's two revenue streams that are supporting this show. On the one hand, it is your physical equipment, the thing you pay ECAM, all
Right.
of the expenses that you have as an executive producer, you have money in the game, and then the same can be said of the
Office Hours,
systems that are in Office Hours. So you are a joint production, a joint company at some point, unless Office Hours flat out buys you out of all of your expenses and your things.
I am not for sale.
I wouldn't think so.
Oh, you got a price.
No,
I
I
know.
don't. My
Vanilla
price is
ice cream. I've seen you.
vanilla ice cream. Lois, go ahead.
I've seen you.
So we've been talking a lot about ownership of things, and we got into copyright. The reason that there exists copyright laws is that people wanted to continue to own what they made, and once things were able to be copied, then there was questions and problems, and the laws are not the same in every country. So in some countries, my speaking right here, I would own that little bit that I just did, right? But you can't own your words as spoken thoughts. In other words, if we're sitting around, we're chatting about things, and I say something, and Tamara suddenly goes, "Oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to use that idea." I don't have a copyright for that because it's verbal. It's not recorded. It's not printed. There's no copy part of it. So back to the ownership question. If I make a collage on a piece of paper, I'm an artist. Do I own that collage? Absolutely. If I put things together by giving directions to an AI, do I own that? Well, there's still some question about that. I would say absolutely, but other people say, no, 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 you didn't cut out the pieces of paper, no. So we have not settled a darn thing today. We're still we have stuff and we can own stuff, and
Being
we have
non-lawyers.
Yeah.
stuff and we can share stuff.
Right. No, look, it's okay that we haven't solved anything. I want to just kind of put a pin in something you just said, Lois, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about, for myself, are the things that I'm creating in AI mine? Do I own them? Excuse me. And I'm thinking specifically about web apps that I've been making and music now. So Just by way of example, yesterday I was, not yesterday, Tuesday, I was going to be leading an online Hanukkah candle lighting. And I decided, you know what? I'd like to have a digital Hanukkah candle lighting. So I went in and I built this little tiny thing where you can, light the candles, and then you can go through and you can light all they're not lighting now. I don't know why they're not lighting. Of course they're not lighting. But whatever. Oh, there we go. I just wasn't close enough. Do I own this? Right? Is this mine? Is this,
well, it's not anybody else's. It must be yours.
I certainly spent enough time on it. That's for sure. Music that I've been making a lot of music lately in Suno. Do I own that? I've come to the conclusion that I do. That these are my
Suno. It has a when you go and use it, it has a terms of service that you accept.
Absolutely.
And if you pay them, if you become a paid subscriber, then you own it.
Yes.
If you don't become a paid subscriber, then you can listen to it, but you can't publish it.
Correct.
So
which is why I became a paid subscriber.
That's a contract thing.
And that, by the way, is to me, that's the most absurd way to determine ownership. Is pay us more money and then you can own the stuff that you're going to create either way. Sky, I'm going to you for the last word.
So Taylor Swift in May of 2025 announced that she had finally acquired ownership of the original masters of her music. They had gone through multiple hands in multiple locations and multiple legal battles. But the recording, Taylor's version, because she had gone back and re-recorded all of them because she wanted to own the rights to them. Well, she now owns the originals and then the additional newer version that she recreated. Well, her current estimated, because she again is not a nonprofit, so all these numbers can be held, privately, is $1.4 to $1.6 billion. Roughly $1 billion jump driven by the Eras Tour concert. Now, I went ahead and asked Perplexity, how much of that has she given away? Because her public relations have said, well, she's doing a lot of really great things. And they said, yes, that's true. But rather than be a comprehensive disclosure, which naturally amplifies good person, the optics relative to the actual percentage is, well, she is a wealthy person that does give after she makes a 9-figure income. I had to figure out what that was. It's in the hundreds of millions an event. So David, when you start making hundreds of millions, you can start giving away. When you start making 1.4 billion, you'll be able to give 100 million away and it'll be okay.
I'm okay with that. I would give that away. That doesn't bother me.
And then you have a place to go watch football in Kansas City.
Truth be told, we don't own money anyway, and someone is knocking at my window, which I guess I'm going to take as a sign that we should go. So I'm going to say thank you to all of you for joining me this week. If you are celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you're celebrating Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah. If you are celebrating Kwanzaa, Happy Kwanzaa. If you're celebrating Festivus, Happy Festivus. Whatever it is that you're celebrating, we hope you have a blessed and gorgeous week. And I and Lois and maybe someone else or a few other people will be here next week on The Rundown. Bye, everyone. See you later.